So yesterday we gave the introduction, the protagonists, the players in the story, the Moishe Perlov. Just to tell you a little this as childhood memory. So as mentioned, so he was like a very old man when I was a kid. I think he lived around to his 90s. As I mentioned, I think he died Yom Kippur. I think it was Lamed Ches. I was already left Australia. A big Bal Nigla and Bal Mesiras Nefesh. And so in the later years, there was another Jew, Rabbi Volshansky. Volshansky is a famous name in Lubavitch today. There is the children and grandchildren. Shiva Morristown and Tzvas, there's grandchildren. So this Betzalel Volshansky was a sheikhet many years in Sydney. He was a great man and very instrumental in the foundations of Chabad in Australia after the war. He was many years in Sydney, and then he moved in his elder years to Melbourne. So my class used to learn in the shul. Baruch Hashem, the school was expanding, and there wasn't a classroom for us. And we used to learn in the shul. It was called the Yiddish class. It was the one class that learned in Yiddish, and it was a mixture of ages, like 3 grades. It was more like 10, 12 kids. Grew a little bit over the years. And so we learned in the shul. So it was a beautiful thing to see every day after davening. In the front of the shul, we couldn't hear. Not that we would understand anyway, probably. But they were to talk. The Betzalel and the Rav Perlov would talk. And actually, a terrible pity, a tape recorder wasn't there to record it. But they're sharing whatever. But Moishe Perlov actually wrote his book, Likutei Sipurim. The Betzalel, who was a master storyteller and had a phenomenal memory. I don't think he ever wrote. Maybe his children wrote. But he in fact, the book of Rabbi Perlov, he writes from where he heard stories. And many of them he said, from my Mechut, not a Betzalel. He has some stories heard from my Zayda too, he writes there. The Bisser. But that was just to see these 2 elder Chassidim in the front of the shul. Every day, after davening, they daven for hours. It's like 10 o'clock already. And they would talk to each other. And we didn't appreciate that even looking at that. But that was a moment. So, what's the story? So the story here is, the Rebbe is quoting Rabbi, it's 1965, Yud Shvat, it's taped. So he says that Moishe Perlov tells a word from the Mashpia, Mechol, the altar. Remember, this is him. Remember the story, we introduced him by saying that he was still, the Rabbi Shab said he should be kept in his full wages. The Bachim should just see him. It's worth the money, even though he was not able, was weak, he couldn't give the shiurim. So what did he used to say? What's the story? I want to translate the Rebbe's words because the Rebbe tells the story in detail. And when you learn Chassidus, and the Rebbe adds, and this is true of Torah altogether, it has to be in such a way that we learn not fremde brivlach, which means literally foreign letters. What's happening in heaven? It has to be that we mean him. And this is the moshel that Michal der Alta used to say. Once the Shuvniks, these are Jews that for Panosa, they lived in small hamlets where very few Jews lived, and sometimes they lived there alone. And over time, because they were cut off from the Jewish environment and there was no possibility to learn yeshivas and chadorim, so amongst them were those that even though they're very God-fearing, as it used to be by the Yeshuvniks, but they were very ignorant and many couldn't even read. Okay, if you remind me of something, to share by something about this and about the Rebbe, about the Yeshuvniks and the Kukariko, that'll give you a hint. The whole story of Kukariko was tied up with this. It was a big time of the Baal Shem Tov, a big kittuk in heaven, what he was doing in encouraging Jews to work the land and not live in the cities and chinuch, big time. So remind me. What? Good for you to remember that, yeah. But yeah, you can remind me, I'll tell you. I didn't say it when you reminded me, when I say it, you'll know why. It's worth the wait, friends. Okay, let's just in a quick paragraph. So once a letter came to one of these shuvniks, since he couldn't read, so he brought the letter to the Melamed. What was the Melamed? Who was the Melamed there? So the Seder was that many Yeshuvniks, they could afford it. Yeshuvnik Yishuv, he was a dweller. So they would hire a teacher for their children, and they put him in a place. This Melamed lived equidistant as much as possible from the various Yeshuvim, these hamlets, so that they could all bring their kids to the, I don't think this is in the original story, that I was adding detail, to the Yeshuvnik to be able to learn by the Melamed. So he brings a letter, he can't read, so he brings the letter to the Melamed. So the Melamed starts to read the letter. As it used to be that once upon a time, a Melamed could read a letter without vowels. And he reads it Batoma with the whole Gishmak, he's reading it. And he's reading it, that the content of the letter is that the father of this Yeshuvnik, Le'aleinu, passed away. Huh?
This is the Das story.
Yeah, that's exactly. And when he read it, the Yeshuvnik fainted. So the Mechol used to conclude, relates Rapelov, and say to the Talmidim, it's not understood. Who reads the letter? The Melamed. And Yeshuvnik doesn't know how to read what's written in the letter. Even if it was written with Nekudis, with vowels, and especially without in Nekudis. So who's supposed to faint? The one who saw? The one who saw should certainly faint, not the one who heard it. So who faints? Not the Melamed, the Yeshuvnik. But the answer is the Melamed. For the Melamed, it's another fellow, it's somebody else. But the Yeshuvnik, it's Zayin Tata, it's his father. Now I want to read you tomorrow, God willing, how the Rebbe spells this out, speaking at the Fabrengen. That's as you say, is a Moshel for Das. Yeah. Yeah. Have a wonderful day, and it's quite an arichas here. Very beautiful. Huh? Huh? Tata, fremde Tata.
No, fremde, you said foreign letters.
For the letter is about a foreign one.
But how did the Rabbi say that we shouldn't consider this what fremde letter?
Yeah, before he said fremde brivlach. Yeah, foreign letters. Das is Zayin Tata, but how the Rebbe translates this to the by the Fabrengen is very powerful.
Connecting to you. That's the whole.
Yeah, that's a mind Tata. Yeah.